My lords, today I bring report on a new discovery, a living planet no less. This planet has seemingly evolved an ability to produce and cultivate its own food, Dr. Orbis reports. We arrived in the atmosphere of a lush tropical planet. The flora was intensely pigmented and swollen molluscoids slither among fruit-bearing trees. An atypical pink daze occasionally bursts through the kaleidoscopic canopy. Given the density of the foliage, we will need to continue our observations from the ground. We quickly found a suitable landing spot and brought the ship down. This planet, on first glance, screams Death World. We will have to be quite cautious here. Upon landing, we exposed a crack in the terrain, hidden upon layers of loam. The amber-coloured gas that we observed from above was even more heavily concentrated below. My team and I speculated that this opening was a previously active vent from deep within the planet's core. From here, however, the vegetation's variety is dizzying and dense with fruit-laden trees. Herds of bulbous, lumbering slugs slowly crawl through the jungle, eating contentedly or sleeping on the nutrient-dense soil, surrounded by litters of their younglings. I ordered that we take samples of the pink gas and the soil. Perhaps the gas was fertilizing the fauna, creating a luscious environment. After rudimentary analysis, we discovered that the gas has a powerful mind-numbing effect that can render all manner of biological life docile and self-satisfied. Under its influence, an intelligent entity will only attempt to satisfy its most basic needs, all while feeling a great sense of accomplishment while doing so. It sounds rather wonderful. Additionally, the gas encourages fat development by affecting the production of natural hormones in those that inhale it. This in turn increases the affected creature's appetite due to a weaker control over nutrient distribution and autoimmune responses. Over time, the result would be an endless reinforcement cycle of overconsumption, and we could confirm that based on analysis, the gas is biologically produced. We have found enzymes in it, but as of yet, we are unable to locate the animal producing it. For deeper exploration into the cave, we will require full respiratory equipment in order to prevent us from intoxication. Utilizing an air quality sensor, we searched for the highest localized concentrations of the gas across the luscious land. Beyond a patch of berry-laden shrubbery, we were led into the mouth of a vast crevice in the center of a clearing. Waves of thick pink miasma emanated from the cave at regular intervals. My team and I believe that the gases were being produced by a subterranean creature, and we intend to investigate further. Hopefully, finding the creature alive, it could provide us with a unique research opportunity, and thus excavation of the chasm has begun. We entered the chasm with rudimentary climbing gear in search of the creature below, and as we descended, the mineralized walls transitioned from a moist yellow soil to a scaly dark pink. Further down, all would become pulsating crimson. Eruptions of thick gas covered us as we continued our descent. Reaching the bottom, we discovered its source, a webbed curtain stretched across the chasm's diameter, suspending an orifice with a beak-like mouth at its center. From this creature, a thickly veined tube snaked its way further into the rock. It would appear that we have found carnivorous life, and I suspect it may be the planet itself. I ordered the team to retrofit the Rift Sphere's sample collection apparatus into an excavation tool, and we used it to dig away at the mouth of the chasm. After cutting through a thick layer of moist yellow mulch, we discovered a new layer of soil. As before, it was dark yellow in colour. It soon broke into the scale-like layered fragment as we dug, and as we dug further, it began to release small bursts of trapped pink gas from the slightest mechanical agitation. While this layer of soil contained a high concentration of organic compound, it was not nearly enough to have been the source of the gas. As we dug deeper, the harvesting tool then pierced through a darker, more crimson-coloured soil. At this, the ground would erupt violently. Thick clouds of pink gas began to pour forward from the gouge that we had made. This darker earth moved as if it was alive. Our harvesting tool was rapidly enveloped in a scarlet earth and crushed to scrap. The surface around us shook with increasingly violent tremors, and we retreated back out of harm's way, for now. This mouth that we have identified, or whatever orifice the creature uses to feed, is intriguing indeed, and I wished to sample it. Thus, we would make an attempt to do just that. We re-entered the cave and approached the orifice. We made several quick cuts and severed the mouth from the central tube jutting out of the crimson rock, and then quickly began our ascent once again. Just as before, the walls of the chasm would shake violently, and a stream of concentrated biological gas flooded the tunnel. We felt the entire chamber shake, and the way out began to grow smaller and smaller as we approached the surface. Whatever this creature was, it was attempting to swallow us. Fortunately, we made it back to the rift sphere in time, and we began study of the 2 specimens that we had acquired. We started with analysis of the pink peculiar soil that we had collected, and confirmed it was indeed the existence of a wider mineral-based biological organism. We believed that the material and the crimson substance that crushed our tool was all part of the same being, the planet itself. Our working hypothesis is that this sentient planet manufactured its own ecosystem, designed to continuously provide it with a highly nutritious and submissive livestock. The soil on this world has a remarkable fertilization property and explains the extreme density of the vegetation on the surface. We have been able to apply some of its principles into our own farming methods, and we hope that we will be able to increase our food output. Furthermore, after extensive experiments with the severed digestive organ, we've gained further insight into the ecosystem of the planet. We think that the soil is part of the living being as well. Within its digestive tract, there are sacs of this highly concentrated biological material that we believe it pushes up into the lower atmosphere to be vaporized. This aerosol gas will eventually settle as the soil and is designed to fatten up the animals that live on the surface and prevent predators from evolving. The intoxicated animals are then consumed by the planet via the large openings similar to the one that we encountered. The mouth that we recovered is one of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands on the planet. A remarkable creature indeed. And further to this discovery, using this gas, we have learned how to synthetically reproduce it and alter it into a practical application as a battlefield painkiller. We amplify the anesthetic effects of the gas and will remove the aggression suppression. And so we ended up with a gas that will allow soldiers to ignore pain and injury and continue to fight on, for the glory of the Commonwealth. This was a positive result, my lords, but I note this is not the first time that we have identified a living planet, or at least a planet-sized creature. I have 2 more examples of this, both of which I shall detail for you now, and we'll begin with the event designated the Echoes Inside, of which Dr. Cersei reports. Readings from Pholtus 1 revealed that it was once mostly covered in a lush vegetation. Now, however, the planet is a little more than a barren rock. No noteworthy activity has been detected. Despite this, sensory scans of the planet have registered puzzling seismographic data. It appears that something is moving underground, something rather large. Dr. Cersei reports that she intends to investigate further. Surface scans of the planet reveal it to be covered in a desiccated flatland, large, swathing areas covered in a fine dusty sediment. Analysis showed us that the sediment traces were all that was left of extensive tracts of vegetation that must have died and dried out with unnatural speed. Furthermore, many of the dry patches crumbled, which revealed a vast cave system just beneath the surface. The surveying trip quickly turned into a spelunking expedition. Using sonar mapping to plot out the vast subterranean network, it eventually became evident that all of these caves were interconnected. We uncovered a massive web of tunnels that crisscrosses the entire surface of the world. There had been 2 additional discoveries of notable importance. The first is that the tunnel system was not a natural formation, but rather had been excavated by some titanic force. The second discovery was perhaps even more alarming. Seismographic data proves that something is still alive and burrowing down here. We soon discovered that a single worm-like creature of truly gargantuan proportion was responsible for most of the tunnels dug, or rather eaten through, the crust of Pholtus 1. The process was slowing down, most likely because the giant worm was starving. It is responsible for the dead vegetation. Once, it fed by burrowing close to the surface and excreting an enzyme that broke down organic matter, which seeped into the soil, which nourished the beast. We have identified, however, that that the worm is not indigenous to Pholtus 1, but as of yet, we have no idea how it ended up on the planet. Further scans of the planet's surface picked up a single artificial structure, which appeared to be an old, abandoned science outpost of alien design. It stood alone in a desert of dust and ash. We landed and excavated this structure. Speculatively translated research logs spoke of a biological terror weapon, one that lied dormant in the soil of the planet until activated. This weapon would then come alive and begin to consume the whole ecosystem with devastating speed. The unfortunate beings that live on the planet would see their once beautiful home turned inexorably into a lifeless desolation. One passage from the alien science team's note is particularly ominous. It reads, "The larval seed project is on schedule, and soon most of the known habitable planets in the galaxy will have a sleeper." My lords, I can report that Dr. Cersei finished the translation of the alien text, and it would appear all of our currently inhabited worlds, with the exception of the homeworld, Unity, are indeed infected with one of these larval seeds, a biological superweapon that could go off at any moment. It also appears that many of our neighbours' planets are also infected. Dr. Cersei has proposed a special research project that could be conducted on the Science Nexus in order to find a way to rid ourselves of the potential threat. Should these larval worms hatch and begin to feed, it will cause untold chaos across the Empire. Keys will be interrupted, and supply lines decimated. Further to this, Dr. Cersei tells me she is confident that she can identify the location of the individual hibernation pods for these larval aliens. She suggests, if possible, that we strike all 21 planets simultaneously, where there is a risk that should one worm be attacked, the others may be triggered. The Doctor is confident that a bioweapon could destroy the worms, with little to no risk to the ecology on the planets. However, we must also raise the possibility that in taking action against these worms, our neighbours, namely the Blorg, the Chinnor Combine, and the Kingdom of Yondarum, are all in the alien text as well, and are potentially infected. Do we risk exposing these worlds to attack by these larval creatures? Shall we inform the aliens of their existence? Perhaps we could work together, perhaps not. I'm aware that we are normally at odds with these empires, particularly the Blorg, but a new year has come. A new year, a new me, perhaps. I await your decision on this event, my lords, but the third and final event to discuss that concerns a living planet is that of the event codenamed Dessicated. Dr. Mikes reports on this one. Dr. Mikes reports that a planet that he has designated Mushroom Land, an odd name indeed that he has given to a barren planet in the Hades Gamma system, is supposed to be covered in water. After all, he has found signs of water all over the world, and everything tells us that water should be here. The temperatures are within the normal range for liquid water to exist, and the planet still has an atmosphere, if tenuous. But everything here is dry, and what vegetation does exist is parched. Further to this, scans have revealed traces of another spacefaring civilization on the planet. Dr. Mikes identified two main objectives: find out what happened to the water, and try to understand what the other spacefaring civilizations were doing here. The Doctor's hypothesis was that the two objectives were likely to be linked, and some in his team believes that perhaps water thieves may be responsible. It was quickly determined that there were no water thieves, at least in the conventional sense, that had been here. What the Doctor found, however, was remarkable. They discovered a vast canyon filled with mushrooms. The water had not vanished, it was inside these vast mushrooms, and they seemed to span a large part of the surface of the planet, all connected to the same mycelium network, which technically makes it a single organism, and by far the largest network we've ever seen. The Doctor and some of his team have dubbed this humongous fungus as the Fumungus, and as such, this is why the Doctor saw it fit to name the planet Mushroom Land. After extensive study, the Doctor reports that the mushrooms have been genetically altered and have completely taken over the ecosystem that once existed on this planet. Their unbridled and accelerated growth was such that they absorbed most of the water that was present here. They subsequently entered a sort of dried up, dormant state in which most of the fungus is still alive, with water spread out across the whole organism. Deep in the heart of the mycelial forest, nestled in the canyons of the planet, The Doctor and his team discovered some sort of bunker, long overrun by mushrooms. The team believed that it was built by the same species that genetically altered the mushroom set. Large sections of the bunker had collapsed, and a lot of the equipment within was likely broken beyond repair, but the Doctor and his team identified some sealed rooms that may hold exploitable material. Notably, no alien remains had been found. Perhaps they abandoned the place, or else they didn't leave behind any body parts that weren't absorbed by the local wildlife. The team made quite the discovery. While searching through the bunker, they found a room sealed behind a still functioning magnetic lock. With a small amount of help from a laser cutter, the team breached the door to find rows of computing equipment all hooked up directly to the mycelium network. Astonishingly, the computers are functional still, and the Doctor and his team were able to reactivate several terminals and databanks. Unfortunately, breaking the encryption and deciphering the language took the team some time, but eventually the team cracked part of the code, and valuable information from the databanks was found within. The databanks told us that this was some sort of listening post. Apparently, the alien race who modified the mushrooms found a way to interpret the signals coursing through the mycelium and convert them into actionable intel. It remains unclear at this time, but the Doctor believes that the water is key. The team is now attempting to bring water to the planet from a nearby asteroid field in the hope that they will awaken the Fomungus once again. Hopefully this will allow us to see what kind of data it transmits, if any at all. It is with joy that the Doctor reports the mushroom network is flourishing once again. With the help of several starships, the Doctor and his team were able to tow several icy asteroids into orbit before bringing them down in chunks to various places on the planet to melt. It has been a long and arduous process, but it is finally beginning to bear fruit. With the mushrooms slowly coming back to life, the computers began to spit out small bits of data that seemed quite random, until we recognized activity that appeared to be from Unity. Worryingly indeed. In cooperation with teams back on Unity, a series of experiments was conducted, and the only possible conclusion is that the mushroom has some sort of limited awareness of what happens on other planets. While the data retrieved as it stands is not exploitable, continued efforts to restore the mushroom network will hopefully give us more results. Several more weeks and months passed, and more water was brought to the planet. Some mysteries, however, remain, as we are not sure how the mushroom manages to collect the data from the rest of the galaxy. The number of signals traversing the network proves surprisingly low, considering the quantity of information conveyed. The most prominent theory is that the Fomungus exists across dimensions, where distances are not what we are used to. In any case, the Fomungus is in contact with its offspring across the galaxy, and these smaller colonies are able to relay data, which our science teams can then interpret. With the network working in full order, my lords, the only decision that remains is whether we should use the surveillance or not. I doubt others in the Galactic Council would take kindly to finding out that we routinely spy on them by such an invasive means. But then again, how would they know? In any case, honoured lords, that is your decision to make. Thanks for watching, folks. If you enjoyed the video and want to hear more from me, please click the video on screen now.